Jack, James, and Benjamin had been best friends since childhood. They spent their summers exploring the woods surrounding their small town in northern Canada. They were fascinated by the legends of the Wendigo, a terrifying cannibal creature that lurked in the forests, waiting to prey on unsuspecting victims. One summer, when they were in their early 20s, they decided to go on a camping trip in the woods. They were excited to test their survival skills and hopefully catch a glimpse of the Wendigo. They packed their tents, camping gear, and plenty of food and set out into the wilderness. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. They fished in the nearby lake, hiked through the woods, and shared stories around the campfire at night. But on the fourth day, things took a dark turn. As they were hiking through the woods, they stumbled upon a small cabin. It was old and abandoned, but there was something about it that drew them in. They decided to explore it, hoping to find some interesting artifacts or clues about the history of the area. Inside, they found strange carvings on the walls and a sense of unease settled over them. They quickly realized that they had stumbled upon a place where the Wendigo had been before. They could feel its presence in the air, and they knew that they needed to leave as soon as possible. But it was too late. The Wendigo had been awakened by their presence and was now hunting them. They tried to run, but it was too fast, too strong. One by one, it picked them off, dragging them away into the woods to be devoured. As the days passed, Jack, James, and Benjamin grew weaker and more desperate. They knew that their time was running out. The Wendigo was relentless, and it seemed to be playing with them, toying with them before it finally killed them. Just when all hope seemed lost, they stumbled upon a small cave deep in the woods. They knew that it was their last chance to escape the Wendigo. They huddled together, trying to stay warm and hoping that they would survive until morning. But in the darkness, they heard something moving outside the cave. They could feel the Wendigo's breath on their necks, its hot breath sending shivers down their spines. They knew that it was only a matter of time before they were found. But then, the unexpected happened. The Wendigo appeared in the cave, towering over them with its monstrous form. But instead of attacking, it began to transform. It twisted and writhed until finally, it took on a human form. It was then that they realized the truth. The Wendigo was not a monster at all, but a person, someone who had been driven to madness by the harsh winters and the isolation of the northern woods. As they sat in shock, the Wendigo explained to them that it was once a man, just like them. But he had been stranded in the woods during a brutal winter, with no food or supplies. He had been forced to resort to cannibalism to survive, and the act had driven him mad. He had become the very thing that he had feared most, the monster that haunted his dreams. And now, he was trapped in this form, unable to escape the curse of the Wendigo. The three friends were horrified by what they had heard. They couldn't believe that someone they had known and trusted had become this monstrous creature. But as they looked at him, they saw the pain and anguish in his eyes. The Wendigo begged them to end his suffering, to kill him and free him from the curse. As the unearthly growls grew louder and closer, Jack, James, and Benjamin exchanged horrified looks, realizing with a sinking feeling that they had no other option but to turn tail and flee back into the dense woods. As the night progressed, James and Benjamin grew increasingly anxious, as they knew that they were not alone in the woods. Suddenly, they heard a blood-curdling scream coming from the direction where Jack had wandered off to. Without hesitation, James and Benjamin began sprinting towards the sound, hoping they could reach Jack in time. They could hear the sounds of branches snapping and leaves rustling, indicating that something was in pursuit. After a few minutes, they saw Jack's lifeless body lying on the ground, with deep claw marks on his chest and a look of sheer terror frozen on his face. James and Benjamin knew that they were not alone, and the Wendigo was still out there, stalking them. They started running again, but this time, they could feel the creature closing in on them. They could hear its heavy breathing and smell its rancid breath. Suddenly, they stumbled upon another abandoned cabin, and without thinking twice, they dashed inside, locking the door behind them. Once they were inside, they realized that they had made a grave mistake. The cabin was old and decrepit, with broken windows and holes in the walls. It was the perfect place for the Wendigo to trap them. As they huddled together in fear, they could hear the creature circling the cabin, growling and snarling. Its breathing was loud enough to shake the fragile walls of the cabin. They knew they had to come up with a plan, but their fear had clouded their judgment. They started arguing and accusing each other of being the reason for Jack's death. Suddenly, Benjamin had an idea. He suggested that they sacrifice one of them to the Wendigo in hopes that it would satisfy its hunger and allow the other two to escape. James and Jack were both horrified by the suggestion, but they knew that it was their only chance of survival. After much debate and tears, they decided that Benjamin would be the one to sacrifice himself. As the Wendigo broke through the cabin door, Benjamin stood before it, offering himself as a sacrifice. The creature lunged forward, sinking its teeth into Benjamin's flesh and devouring him whole. James and Jack were able to escape the cabin, but they were scarred for life by the traumatic events they had experienced. They knew that they could never forget the terrifying creature that had haunted their dreams and taken the life of their friend. As they walked away from the woods, they realized that they would never be the same again. They would always remember the horror they had faced and the sacrifices they had made to survive. The memory of the Wendigo would haunt them forever.